Mary. Nice to meet you. Awesome.
Nice to meet you.
Oh, yes, yes. Yes.
Oh, you're in the clinic?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, I read
Dr. Stanley was
I
my
read this
boss's
chapter about that.
old boss, and now my boss, Joe retired last month. Heartbroken. It's very sad. And then Dr. Stanley retired, so we kind of grind that with him too. King. Oh, I actually, Nell Robinson from Florida is my new supervisor, at least for right now. Yeah, because Joe mentioned somebody, I couldn't remember her name, not to do that, but I haven't never been able to do salesperson yet. Yes, we did a meet and greet week before last, I think it was, and I told her, oh, I love hearing your Southern accent. It's so close to home. Yeah, I would really fine. It was nice to meet her though, and enjoy. I'm looking forward to working with her. She was just like, oh, that's just the coolest thing. It's pretty cool. Yeah, it is pretty cool. Definitely.
Good morning. Welcome to First Unitarian Universalist Church, a church of open minds and loving hearts since 1866, celebrating many spiritual paths and many sources of wisdom. Your faith, your doubts, your questions, your hopes for our world, and your identity are welcome here. This year, April is a month of reawakening and reconnecting. You may have seen something in your mailbox or your inbox about that if you're connected to the church here. Attending to both lower community risk and warmer weather, a variety of activities are planned in person, outdoors, indoors, Wednesday forums in the Commons or on Zoom. You can join us on Wednesday nights. Coffee hour both in the courtyard and online and in the Commons downstairs. Coffee hours everywhere now. It just keeps spreading, as well as social events and hikes and playgrounds and more, including a festive auction planned for Saturday, April 30th, which you can start donating events or other things now as well. You can find more in your e-news of how to support that. And a return of the maypole, finally, on May 1st, Sunday, May 1st. Next week, we have a special guest musician, Peter Mayer, who's the author of our hymn, Blue Boat Home. You can see your bulletin or your e-news for a whole host of events throughout this month, different ways to connect, online, in person, indoors, outdoors, everywhere. We're so glad to be able to reconnect with folks in these coming weeks. So you can join us for coffee hour today for those in person. Masks are still required during worship and in the lobby. Masks are expected in the Commons when you're not eating or drinking. And the courtyard is open as well for conversation outdoors if you want to grab your coffee and go outside. A little brisk, but sunny out there. Still feels nice. So you're welcome to find wherever you're comfortable. Each month, we partner with the Justice Organization with shared values in our community. Our justice partner for April is Revolutionary Earth, working for more accessible and sustainable food security in Rochester, caring for the earth and caring for our neighbors. So half of our collection for the month goes to their work. The plates will be passed today, so you can offer... Yay! It's a little thing, so plates will be passed during the offering today, or you can give online at any time or at the boxes on the side as well. And half our collection for the month will go to their work. We'll also have an opportunity to learn directly from them this Wednesday night for our forum, either in the Commons or online on Zoom as well. And there'll be a work day later in the month that you can volunteer for as well with Revolutionary Earth. So learn more in the e-news or at the forum this week. Thank you for your generosity in supporting their work. So I invite you to take a breath, those gathered online, those gathered in person, and center yourself in this time, this space. Let us enter this time of worship with these words from the 1870s, our minister, the Reverend Eliza Tupper Wilkes. May our faith in humanity and our message of hope and good cheer light our way. It's good to be together.
Today's chalice both really want to do this. Today's chalice lighting words are attributed to Kaladasa. Look to this day, for it is life, the very life of life. In its brief course lie all the verities and realities of your existence, the bliss of growth, the glory of action, the splendor of beauty. For yesterday is but a dream, and tomorrow is only a vision. But today, well lived, makes every yesterday a dream of happiness, and every tomorrow a vision of hope. Look well, therefore, to this day.
I'd like to invite any children or anyone, I guess, really who wants to come up and sit on the floor up here to join me for the Time for All Ages today. So today's story was inspired a little bit by our reading. So one of the readings is entitled Mud Season. So what I got to... Hey, Theo, how are you? What got me thinking about that is that you're kind of stuck. And then that got me thinking about this time when I was really little. Like, I think I was probably only 5 or 6, and I was at the age where I didn't like taking naps, and would kind of fight it, unlike now. And so my mom would let me camp on my floor. And I'd get a sleeping bag and a flashlight, and I'd sit there and read, and eventually usually fall asleep or take a nap. So one of these times, I must have been really tired and really needed the nap, because when I woke up, everything was dark, and I didn't know where I was, and I was all sorts of discombobulated. I was going, where am I? What's going on? I'm hot, I'm sweaty, it's dark. What happened? I got flipped upside down somehow in my sleeping bag, and my head was in the bottom where my feet are supposed to be, and I couldn't get out. Well, no wonder I was all hot and sweaty and wrapped up in there, and But then when I got out, everything kind of looked the same, but I'm sure I looked I'm sure my hair was all over the place and staticky, and I was probably a little bleary-eyed and wandering around like I didn't know what was going on. Has anybody felt that way, I don't know, after the last 2 years? You've got out of that nice, cozy sleeping bag of isolation and quarantine, and you're out in the world, and things kind of look the same and they feel the same, yet everything is different. I'm seeing all of my friends here, right? But everybody's wearing masks, so I only get to see their beautiful eyes. And we don't get to do a lot of the things that we usually do, like, hugging and, necessarily really working closely together, because all that social distancing stuff. But every day we're taking steps more toward what I'm calling the new normal. I try to not say things are back to normal, because I don't think that the normal we knew 2 years ago is ever going to really be here again. And I find myself thinking about, that happened before the pandemic. So it's a marker in my brain to think of when things happened. So before my nap, I was fighting my nap and I didn't want to get up. Or I didn't want to sleep, I should say. And what I really needed was that sleep, and we really needed this time apart. But now, it's so exciting to be back together and finding out what our new normal is, no matter how discombobulated and turned around and different things are. So that is our story today, just a little tale from a long time ago. So Austin will play the children's benediction. I think Joe's going to play too. And we will head out and go upstairs.
About 2 weeks ago, I was walking around my yard and observing my perennial garden, and I was pretty lost in thought. I could see some irises beginning to peek out of the soil, and some cabbage-shaped sedum bulbs make their way towards the sun. I walked around wondering what plant would emerge next and which ones just wouldn't make it. You see, last year I created all my gardens. I cut away sod, I moved rocks from established beds, and in the end I had 4 very large garden beds that needed plants. So family and friends generously donated ferns and hostas and bee balm, native grasses, and sedum to fill in the gardens. And because they were new last year, I'm hoping that they return stronger than before. As I continued to walk my yard, I had the urge to begin the process of cleaning out the perennial beds in preparation for the growing season. And then I remembered, 1, we're in Minnesota and it'll probably snow again, which it did. And 2, the time just wasn't right. The plants and the soil needed more time to rest and prepare for the busyness of the growing season ahead. This made me think about the process that we are going through as a congregation. Prior to COVID, we had so much growth and vibrancy and vitality and excitement. And then we needed to pause, to go on our own winter break. And I, like so many, wanted the winter break to end much faster than it did. I wanted our spring, our reawakening to begin. And now, as we begin to reopen, there is a sense of excitement around getting back to our church programming and seeing people in person regularly. There may also be a bit of cautiousness, a wondering about the timing of our reemergence. It'll be beautiful, just as my perennial gardens will be.
Good morning. It's good to be with you. I invite you to settle in here as we create a place of communal caring and connection. Be enriched by the presence of each other and draw yourself closer into the heart of love at this time of service and reflection. Be enriched by the presence of each other. It's our time to pause amidst the busyness of our lives, to slow down enough to consider the beauty that is here all around us, and to open a space for listening and love. Here we honor all who support us in this caring, loving, and all-inclusive ministry. We send gratitude to Lynn Kirkland and Joyce Wood, serving as our caring coordinators, arranging care for our members and friends in need. The members of our caring committee are wonderful examples of our compassionate community, holding us up as we go through challenging and happy times. And these last 2 years have definitely taken a lot out of us. They have taken a lot from us. If during this time of increasing needs in our lives, you are experiencing challenges, we encourage you to reach out for support and help. Many of us may need additional care, whether it be personal pastoral care or other assistance, and we encourage you to reach out to Reverend Luke or myself with that request. In this community, we share pieces of our lives with one another. We do this because all people here have value. Each person's experience matters. We lift up those who are experiencing sadness, illness, or loneliness. May the strength and love in our congregation help guide you. We revel in those who are experiencing joys in their lives. May their happiness lift us all, and may their joy filter into all around them. We hold in our hearts Naomi Attribune and her family. After a lengthy hospitalization and valiant efforts in rehabilitation, Naomi has entered hospice care. Her 3 children are with her, and the hospice team and the staff at Naomi's home are helping make her comfortable and supporting the family. Please keep them in your thoughts as they comfort her. And Kathy Hufftailing and myself ask for well wishes and healing thoughts sent to her brother and my uncle, Mike O'Neill. Mike has suffered several medical concerns over the last few months and is facing a long road of recovery. We know prayers and well wishes can make hard times easier for everyone. Please hold Kathy and Mike's family in your hearts. And as our UUs have been doing for over 150 years, we are continuing to adjust to an ever-changing world and new ways of doing things. Through this time of adjustment, we ask for hope and patience, understanding and acceptance, and a renewed commitment of service to those in our lives, church, and community. May the faith in the spirit of life, love for the community of earth, and love for the light in each other be ours now and in all the days to come.
Our prayer today is a sung communal prayer. Austin, Joe, and I will lead. You can remain seated for it. We'll sing it through once, a hymn that many of you likely know. And then if you want to follow along, this section can follow Austin, the middle section can follow Joe, and this section can follow me to sing. Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, Spirit, draw near. Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, gathered here draw near. Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, Spirit, draw near. We will now receive the offering.
Today's first reading is Late March by R. Schiffman. Again, the trees remembered to make leaves. In the forest of their recollection, many birds returned singing. They sang because they forgive themselves the winter, and all that remains still bitter. Yet it was early spring, when the days were touch and go, and the late snow could nip a shoot or freeze a fledgling in its nest. And where would we be then? But that's not the point. Do you think the magpie doesn't know that its chicks are at risk, or the peach trees and their two frail blossoms, the newly awakened bees that is incipient within us? We know, but we can't help ourselves any more than they can, any more than the earth can, stop hurtling through the night of its own absence. Must be something in the sap, the blood, a force like gravity, a trick called memory. You name it, or leave it nameless, that's better. How something returns and keeps on returning through a gap, through a dimensional gate, through a tear in the veil. And there it is again, another spring, to woo loss into song. The second reading is Mud Season by Alice Persons. After a brutal winter, the world dissolves in weak sunshine and water. Mud sucks at your shoes. It's impossible to keep floors or the dogs clean. Peeling layers of clothes like onion skins, you emerge pale, root-like, a little dazed by brighter light. You haven't looked at your legs in months and discover an alarming new geography of veins and flaws. Last year, you scoffed at the people who got spray tanned, but it's starting to appeal. Your only consolation is the company of others who haven't been to Nevis or Boca Raton, a pale army of fellow radishes, round onions, long underground tubers.
Just when you think that you've made it. This trick of the season, early spring, writes the poet, where the days are touch and go. Just when you think you've made it, maybe to some new season or to some new routine, dropping case counts and a church slowly opening, then surprise, a new variant. Or a child tests positive for COVID after 2 years of avoiding it, 2 days before the kids' first flight for spring break, 2 days before the trip that was postponed for 2 years, 2 days instead of a week spent in warm weather with family. You spend time on the phone with the travel insurance company at home while it's cold and rainy in Minnesota. Not that, this past week was anything like that for me. 2 days. And yet, of course, in that context, thank God, in a context of nobody getting very ill, having the ability, the access, the privilege of vaccines and health care and time away, an immensity of privilege. And yet, still, in 1,000 nuances in each of our lives, we have griefs that, in the words of my Scandinavian ancestors, would say, could be worse. Yes. And yet, any good counselor, any good therapist, any good friend will remind you even so. Don't neglect or downplay your own disappointment, your own sadness, grief, loss, anger. However trivial it might seem when the world is at war and plagues similar or worse than the ones at your door rage forth around the world because of class or identity or how many injustices that break your heart each day. Still, perhaps that manageable tiny bit of grief or loss might just be an invitation toward more compassion, something rooted in feeling and in the heart that can tune your soul toward the suffering, toward the grief or the loss of others. And that is the trick of spring in this climate. When you think you're there, but you're not quite. It's touch and go, starts and stops, so much out of your control all the time, glimpses of hopes mixed in with bitter winds that remind you it's not all guaranteed. It's not all sunshine and warmth all the time. There is always uncertainty that gives us pause, to remind us of our fragility, to root us each day in humility, in this pendulum swing of the heart, to notice the brokenness and then to notice the beauty, and never spend all our time at either one of those extremes, but back and forth, always. So you wonder, as you wake to the day, maybe hiding under the covers a bit, hesitant to look out, unsure of what the day, the world will bring in the news or in the heart, wondering what is this day I'm awakening to, this monthly theme here at church, and am I ready for it? Mary Oliver says in her poem, that's the big question, the one the world throws at you every morning. She says, the world asks, here you are, alive, would you like to make a comment? And some days, especially these last several long months, you might want to respond, not really. I'm not really sure what to say. I'm not sure how to respond. I'm unsure. Because another poet, Alice Persons, reminds us, after a brutal winter, the world dissolves. Mud sucks at your shoes. It's impossible to keep the floors or the dogs clean, she writes. Peeling layers of clothes like onion skins, you emerge pale and root-like, a little dazed by a brighter light. Your only consolation is the company of others. I love those phrases. They seem so right. A little dazed by some brighter light that you're not sure yet you can trust to move out toward, but it still beckons you toward whatever is coming now, coming next. Tentative, precarious as it might be, still it's a way forward. And it's a miracle that we keep doing that, keep moving toward that through the mud and the muck of spring in seasons of life and the world, moving forward, attending to our mundane daily tasks, because often that's all that makes sense in our time and our attention to do. The time space, the heart space that we can manage is just a bit at a time. To just get to this next hour, get to lunch, get to nap time turned around in our sleeping bag, if it must be that, and to do our part, to care for what we have capacity to care for, maybe sometimes push a little more or sometimes pull back. It's miraculous that we keep doing that and keep moving forward. Now, I had more celebratory thoughts about this Sunday's message when I first planned it, about this month of reawakening and connecting as a church with so much possibility and growth and new ways to be together, this beautiful mailing of all these opportunities to be together, which is still true and good. It's the little things that make the difference. I don't know if there's any better sound to a preacher's ears than people bursting into applause when we say we're passing the offering plates. That's a miracle. That's a beautiful, beautiful thing. It's those little things that make the difference. The offering plate, being able to be in the commons or the courtyard or on Zoom with a cup of coffee, singing together in shared space or hearing others sing in shared space. But as the plague we were trying to escape for 2 years visited our home this week, I was once again in the mode of learning at the feet of a 5-year-old. Now, she's young enough that she won't get too mad at me for talking about her from the pulpit, in part because she's not here right now. But while she didn't like having this illness and she was able to recover quickly, she knew that this illness had taken so much away for 2 years. At the same time, what she did in those early days of having it, she said, "Hey, listen to this. With my nose so stuffed up, I can really sound like a pig." And she just started making these sounds. Couldn't believe it. There's something about that of a 5-year-old that teaches you lots of things about the necessity of simple, resilient humor. That, yes, this is horrible, but listen to this. This is funny. Now, that hasn't always been my way of coping, maybe not yours either, but there are ways that each of us find out of necessity, or we witness from another, or we're working on within ourselves, that helps us pay attention to what is real, to know it for what it is, to take it seriously, to do what needs to be done about it, take all the extra tests and whatever, and then right in the middle of it, to find something within yourself or to be blessed by the kindness or grace or laughter of a loved one that seems to say, yeah, it's a little touch and go. It's muddy, it's messy, it's far from ideal, and yet there is life breaking through in the midst of it. There is love and there's laughter and simple reminders of how we still awaken to joy even when all else would hopeless seem. There's something within us, always ready, like some ancient song of our ancestors that lives within us on repeat in the soul, waiting for us to wake up and sing along all the time. Something in our bones that keeps calling to us if we're quiet enough, something calling our name that sounds like love or freedom or justice, some still small voice that says life and love keep finding their way and will keep showing up. It's like a body memory that we have to be able to feel but often cannot name the source of, that wakes us up to keep moving in the directions of love. Must be something in the sap, writes the poet. Must be something in the blood, a force like gravity, a trick called memory. You name it or leave it nameless, that's better. How something returns and keeps on returning through a gap, through a dimensional gate, through a tear in the veil. And there it is again, another spring, to woo loss into song. To woo loss into song and return through a gap, through years of distance, like an open door of a sanctuary, an open door of a heart that has been closed for far too long. Through some tear in the veil, some bright morning light awakens the heart, a trick, a force, a song. You've felt it, you've heard it call your name in however many times in your own life, whatever the circumstance. It calls our name, and it might take years, or it might take a lifetime. It might just take a few days to see what comes, what can grow from seeds planted years and years or generations before. There's a lot of tending that needs to be done to bring back to life things that have been tended to for generations. And you emerge after brutal seasons and want every good chance to grow. It happens in the earth itself. It happens in communities like family or church. It takes a lot of tending to uncover things, clear things out, find out what has fared well, these conditions of the season, the who and the what that might need a little extra love or support to bring them to vibrancy in life. Sometimes it's realizing what is not coming back in the same way, what isn't going to be the same, grow the same, and then finding ways to let things go with love and with grace, lest we tread into tender lands with too much grievance weighing us down or too many expectations of sameness or perfection. When you thought you knew what would happen, but it doesn't. When you were sure something would work, but it won't. When you imagined how something would be, but it's not. It's like needing really good garden boots for the soul that can withstand ankle-deep worth mounts of mud to help us into this new season come back to life in some way we didn't imagine. Because when you weed out what isn't needed or what doesn't have to be, then maybe there's room for something new, something different to grow. Maybe there is room for something rooted and hopeful that can awaken from the seeds that have been there all along, and the deep roots and the new seeds together find their place in the soil. Because what is the soul, or what is the church, other than a living embodiment of constant regeneration again and again? So I'm asking these days, what seeds are we planting? What kind of garden are we trying to grow? And maybe in the spring, if we hush just enough, we can hear those seeds calling our name. For our closing hymn, I invite you to remain seated. Austin, Joe, and I will lead the verses, but feel free to sing along at any time you'd like. Hush, hush, somebody's calling my name.
Hush, somebody's calling my name.
Hush, hush, somebody's calling my name.
Oh my Lord, oh my Lord, what shall I do?
Sounds like freedom, somebody's calling my name.
Sounds like freedom, somebody's calling my name.
Sounds like freedom, somebody's calling my name.
Oh my Lord, oh my Lord, what shall I do?
Sounds like justice, somebody's calling my name.
Sounds like justice, somebody's calling my name.
Sounds like justice, somebody's calling my name.
Oh my Lord, what shall I do?
Soon one morning, death come creeping in my room.
Soon one morning, death come creeping in my room.
Soon one morning, death come creeping in my room.
Oh my Lord, what shall I do?
I'm so glad that trouble don't last always. invite you to rise in body or spirit. As you're comfortable, place a hand on your heart or toward the sky or the earth and breathe deep the breath of life. Go yonder, and gather the people. Give them not hell, but courage and hope. Give them something of the love you have found here, and tell all the people that love is our home.